parlays and player props for week 13 in the NFL. Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Austin from Calling Our Shot. Over the past 4 weeks, this video alone, 13-3 on the player props. So hopefully we can continue that. We got another 4 player props and a money line parlay coming your guys' way. And we're going to get into it. Now, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Click that like button too. It only takes a couple seconds. And we're almost at 15,000 subscribers. Now, a lot of people in my comments are normally often asking, Austin, what is the process you normally use to find these bets? Where are you going? And normally that process, we have a couple betting 101 videos linked on the channel, which I'll link the playlist down below. But several of those videos, it starts with OddsJam. And if you don't know what OddsJam is, well, congrats. You're in for a treat today because we're going to talk about some of their cool features. Now, OddsJam, the main feature of it is being able to compare all the books' values and the odds that they have for each bet that you might be looking to place. They have a couple other paid features, which we'll highlight today, talking about positive expected value betting, arbitrage betting, etc., etc. We've actually done several other videos on this website. So, like I said, it's probably the most important one in my process when I'm placing bets because it saves you a ton of money. And I promise you, we'll talk about it in a second. Now, if you want to check out those videos that we've done with OddsJam before, they've sponsored us in the past. They've been a sponsor since day one of the Call on Our Shot channel. So we appreciate them. They're sponsoring this video, but you can check those videos out. They'll all be linked down below. They're absolutely, you don't want to miss them. You'll really obtain a lot of info from them. But I don't want to highlight all these features. I'd rather just show you how they're used. And we're going to start with our first player prop of the day, Hunter Renfrow. We're taking his over 6.5 receptions. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders receiver, they'll be taking on the Washington football team. They're at home. It's 4:05 Eastern kickoff, a little bit later in the afternoon for the people on the East Coast like myself. Now, the Raiders will be without their star tight end, Darren Waller. And now arguably, now let's hop into OddsJam. And arguably, the best feature of OddsJam is finding the best value that you possibly can. Now, you would go to, and so using OddsJam, you'll go to the Raiders. You'll see this game right here. Boom. You got so many different options of what you can bet on. But we're just going to go to, you'll find quickly receptions. Boom, you're here. And then boom, you can see Hunter Renfrow, receptions. And I see the best value here, highlighted in yellow, FanDuel, plus 120. Great value for it. And so we'll be hopping all right onto it. And the OddsJam link is down below. Make sure you go show them some love. Not only on their, just go visit the website and use it, but also on their Twitter, their YouTube channel, everything else. They do a lot of cool stuff over there. So make sure you show them some love on the links down below. But boom, you see Hunter Renfrow plus 120 value. And you can see some other sports books like Caesars has minus 105, DraftKings plus 110, best value FanDuel plus 120. Now, they do have, OddsJam has the pinnacle line, or the perfect line they call it, and that's the sharpest line in all of books. And that's just the line that takes in the most books, most bets per day. And you see it, minus 105. So we're getting a very, very good value bet on this one. And the reason I say to use this website, because you could see that same bet, the Hunter Renfrow over 6.5 receptions, minus 105. You placed $100 on that, you'd only win back 95. Whereas if you went to OddsJam, you saw it was plus 120 on FanDuel, you'd win 120. That's a $25 difference. You're missing out on fun money if you're not checking this website and finding the best odds and having a bunch of different sportsbooks accounts open. Now, the biggest reason you look at Mr. Hunter Renfrow, he's had 7+ receptions in 4 of his past 5 games, and he's clearly the safety blanket for their quarterback, Derek Carr. Now, truthfully, I really like this because Darren Waller will be out today, and slot receivers have had field days against this Washington football team defense all year. We've seen Chris Godwin, we've seen Cole Beasley, we've seen Sterling Shepard, and Keenan Allen all hit this over pretty easily, and I think Hunter Renfrow is right in line. Now, if you've been betting Renfrow all season, you know his line's going up from like 3.5 to 4.5 to 5.5, all the way up to 6.5 receptions now. And it wouldn't surprise me if he continues to hit that over, because this is a guy that he won't necessarily get a lot of receiving yards, although he did have a field day on Thanksgiving. But this is a guy that could end up with 7 receptions on 50 receiving yards. Renfrow will continue to be a safety blanket. And like I said, icing on top, the OddsJam plus expected value calculator, you can see it. We have Mr. Hunter Renfrow right here, plus 120. You see the pinnacle, sharpest line, perfect line for OddsJam, minus 105. I'm all in. I really like this bet, and we'll be riding with it. Now let's move on to another one, and you see this positive expected value bet. You had 5.15% for Mr. Hunter Renfrow. Well, just scrolling a little bit down, you'll find another one of the guys we're on, Marquise Hollywood Brown, minus 110 on BetMGM, minus 139 for Pinnacle, or the OddsJam perfect line. Now, going back to the Pittsburgh Steelers game, you can easily see we'll find the receptions, and I really like it because we're taking over 4.5 receptions, which I think is a really good bet. Now, I found it. We'll go down. Boom. You can see minus 110 on BetMGM. Now, a couple other books have it minus 115. DraftKings, minus 122. FanDuel. And then the biggest one, you can already see it's a plus expected value bet because OddsJam's got it at minus 139. So we're getting great value on BetMGM at minus 110. Now, talking about Mr. Marquise Hollywood Brown, well, The Ravens take on the Steelers today, and in his career, Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, whatever you want to call him, hasn't had a ton of success against him. As you saw, this last game, he had 4 receptions on 8 targets. That was last year. But this year is getting a ton of opportunity. Now, he's seen 10-plus targets in 5 of his last 6 games, something he had rarely done, if ever, in his whole NFL career. And he's hit this over in 5 of those last 6 games as well. Now, the one game he missed was 4 receptions and 5 targets in a Chargers game, against the Chargers that they absolutely blew him out. Now, Brown has had 8, 6, and 9 receptions over his last 3 weeks, and he's clearly the +1 target for this offense. This is not a great matchup for Mark Andrews, and if you went back to the positive expected value bet, you'd see Mark Andrews here. His reception prop is a plus expected value one for the under, but either way, I really do think Marquise Hollywood Brown due for a big day, and I'm going to ride with him over 4.5 receptions, -110. Now, let's move on to another one. We'll stay in the same game. We're going to move back into the Steelers-Ravens game. We're going to go to rushing yards under, and here we go. Where are you? Where are you? Boom. You see Najee Harris. That's our next one. We're taking under 58.5 rushing yards. You see -115 on a ton of other books. BetMGM, DraftKings, Caesars. All the books have the same. That's not necessarily the biggest plus expected value bet, although OddsJam does have this at -117. So that's not too bad, but still, you got to look at Najee Harris, and we'll talk more about his lines. Now, Najee Harris, I think, is a great rookie running back, but sadly, his offensive line is not great. He's averaging just 3.6 yards per carry. It's not his fault because Najee is basically having to do it all by himself. Now, he has gone under this line, 58.5 rushing yards, in just 5 of 11 games so far this season, so a little less than 50%. You don't love to see that, but granted, 2 of the games he did go over. 2 of the 6 games he went over, he had 62 rushing yards, so just barely getting over, and so I can live with that unless he's going over by like 100-plus rushing yards. But in the past 2 games, Najee Harris, 23 rushing yards and 39 rushing yards. Clearly, he has not been the same the past 2 weeks. Neither has the Steelers offense. Now, the main reason, though, I really like this is because of the matchup against the Ravens. Now, last week, if you watched the video, we had an easy cash. It was Nick Chubb under 81.5 rushing yards. And I understand it might have seemed like, why are you betting a Nick Chubb under? This guy gets the ball a lot, one of the best true runners in the NFL. Well, it's because of the matchup, because against the Ravens, only one running back this season has had 60-plus rushing yards against them. And that would be Dalvin Cook, who had 110, although 66 of that came on 1 single carry. And then you looked at last week with Nick Chubb, best I can do is 16 rushing yards. It was a no-sweat bet. You didn't even have to consider it. Now, I did just say one running back has hit 60-plus yards. Do have to acknowledge this line is 58.5, and actually 2 running backs have hit this, as Joe Mixon ended up with 59 rushing yards on the dot, but not a lot of other running backs have even gotten close to this. And all things considered, Najee Harris, really, that line is really going to hold him back a lot. Over the last 20, these teams, obviously, it's a divisional matchup. They see each other a lot. And spoiler alert, in our other NFL Week 13 best bets with my favorite spreads and over-unders, we might have the under in this game, but over the last 24 meetings between these teams, the Steelers have had a running back hit this over 10 times. So 10 of 24, not a little bit less than 50%, and 6 of those were Le'Veon Bell, and if Le'Veon Bell was injured, a couple of the other ones were like D'Angelo Williams, and yeah, those were his backups. And that was back in the day when the Steelers had one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Sorry, Steelers fans, you guys do not have that anymore. They rarely have done it recently. And Baltimore has given up the 2nd fewest rushing yards per game in the NFL. And last note, they're 1st in the league in time of possession. So less possessions for the Steelers, less time for the Najee to get some handoffs. And so I'll ride with Najee Harris, under 58.5 rushing yards. So my last player prop of the video, we're going back to positive expected value. Now you can see on here, the top 2 on the list, 10.31 and even a 7.83, both Tom Brady. Now Tom Brady over 2.5 passing touchdowns. I love the bets, +110. You can see that on Barstool Sportsbook and a couple other books here. But I'm not going to take it because if you've watched the NFL Week 13 best bets, you already know I'm on the Bucs team total over against the Falcons. So I don't want to force a bet into here when I could get hurt twice, basically putting the same thing on the same, basically putting the same bet in twice, making it 2 units. I don't really want to mess with that. Now the rushing yards is an interesting one, -136 on Pinnacle, or on OddsJam's perfect line, +100 for other books. An interesting one. We'll see how these 2 plan out. But the last one I'm going to go with, Carson Wentz. I'm taking his under 22.5 completions, -140. Now, if you scroll down a little bit lower onto the OddsJam plus expected value page, now it does cost money, but we're still showing it to you. You can see Carson Wentz over here is 21.5 receptions is a plus expected value bet. But you see me, I'm taking 22.5, so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we're going to go into that game and look at it. Now you can see 21.5, that's the line on FanDuel, 20.5 on WinBet. But on a lot of other books, 22.5 on BetMGM, Caesars, DraftKings, that's the line I'm going to pay a little bit more juice because it's going to be another positive expected value bet, just judging by the -132 at 21.5. Now, Carson Wentz, you know, he is what he is. He's the Colts starting quarterback. He had a decent game last week. Not great. Not, you know, their play calling was a little bit subjective. Today they're taking on the Texans. And last week you saw them. They did not run the ball a whole lot in the second half. Didn't really lean on their star running back, Jonathan Taylor. And that showed as they blew their lead at halftime. And I think they'll get back to the ground game. Now, these two teams have already played recently. They played a couple weeks back. And the Colts blew them out. The Colts are, again, 10-point favorites. And guess what? Carson Wentz, big 11 completions in that game. And that wasn't even half of what he needed to hit this over, 22.5 minus 140. Or hit this hit the over. Now, in Carson Wentz's last 5 wins, now the Colts are 6-6. In their last 5 wins, Carson Wentz gone under on all 5. He had 11 versus Buffalo in their last win, 22, then 22, then 17, then 11. You can see why I wanted to buy it up to 22.5 on those select books, because hey, he's ended at 22 in a couple of those games. Now, I don't think he gets particularly close today. And you know Carson Wentz, he's known for throwing a lot of deep balls. And, you know, heck, I'm fine with it. Throw them deep, complete them, get a long touchdown. That will reduce your number of completions, get the game over quicker. And so I'll ride with Wentz. Now, if you look at it, they're going into their bye week, so they probably want to get out of this game injury-free, just get clean, get out, and get into your bye week next week. I imagine they'll lean on Jonathan Taylor again this week. Like I said, this is a plus expected value bet. Use an OddsJam. I promise you, even if you don't pay for this service, it is 100% worth it just to see the best odds that you can place it at. You could have had FanDuel. You would have been placing 21.5 when you could have had played a little bit more juice and gotten at a better line on other books. So make sure you open a couple different accounts. Now, that's why we're riding with the Wentz wagon today. Now, my final play, the money line parlay. We're doing 3 legs of this bad boy, 3 underdogs. It's week 13. We're going to go crazy. We're doing the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Seahawks plus 150, plus 1,554 odds. Now, I understand it. All of these 3 are fading the public completely, and we'll talk about each of them. Now, the Bengals are taking on Chargers are taking on the Bengals. Everyone's going to bet the Bengals. They've seen how good they've been the past couple weeks. This is when the Bengals rope you in. They say, we got you, because that's exactly what they do. They look good, and then they just screw up and just lose to a game that they probably shouldn't lose, like they did to my New York Jets. Now, the next leg, so I think the Chargers have a chance of pulling this one out. Next leg, Steelers. Now, they're taking on the Ravens. I already talked about it. Najee Harris probably won't get a lot going. But the Ravens' offense has been bad. This was my upset pick on the podcast, so I got to roll with it because I think they have a good chance of not only covering, but winning today in a big divisional matchup. This is basically their season on the line. Mike Tomlin will show up, and I think he'll get his guys motivated. Last leg, the Seahawks, it's so ugly that it might hit. They're taking on the 49ers. They're at home. And yeah, the 49ers will be without Deebo Samuel and I believe Trey Sermon and a couple other guys. Now, you don't love the Seahawks. Their offense stinks. Russell Wilson might as well be throwing it with his left hand out there. But still, I think all 3 of them have a chance to win. And so I'll be riding with them as my moneyline parlay. Plus 1,544. Great odds. 3 guys, 3 legs. That's all we need. And I love the value. Now, that will be it. Now, make sure you check out OddsJam and all the videos I already talked about linked down below. You don't want to miss out on them. I promise you. They are very useful. And you'll probably obtain a lot of value from them and a lot of knowledge. Check out their YouTube channel. Show them some love on Twitter as well. We appreciate them. OddsJam is the absolute best. They've always been sponsoring the Call on Our Shot channel. We can't do it without their support. So we appreciate you guys. Let's go make some money this Sunday, NFL weekend. If we have any extra player props, I'll post them in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys. This has been Austin. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.